It's time to start. I'd like to call the meeting to order for our July 20th meeting. I'd like everyone to join me in a moment of silence at this time. Thank you. Would everyone stand and please join me in the pledge? We don't know where the flag is. We don't have a flag. We'll just say the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
It was probably history being made.
At this time, we need to approve the minutes of the prior board meeting. Board members, you've had a chance to review these minutes in your packets. Are there any discrepancies that are found? If not, I need a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve.
I have a motion by Ms. Wells, a second by Mr. Bowers. All in favor of approving the minutes of the prior board meeting, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I hear none. Next, we need to approve the agenda. And we need to move, Melody, which one was it? Okay, we need to move the information to consider emergency certification for a biology position at the high school up to under
A, it'll be, it won't
Under
be,
that.
under item A, so A1. Emergency certified biology teacher, is that how you're going to have it worded?
It's consider emergency certification for the biology position at the high school. And I'll make the motion to move that to A1. Need a motion to approve the agenda as it is with the changes.
I make the motion to approve with the changes.
Have a motion by Ms. Wells, a second by Mr. Johar. All in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I hear none. And recognitions. Ms. Embry.
Good evening, board members and all you guests. This has been a very busy summer for several of our Muhlenberg County students. I'd like to mention to you board members, there were several junior and senior beta members who traveled to Disney World for National Convention. Muhlenberg County was well represented with a third place finish in jewelry by junior beta member Rayleigh Chadwick, fourth place finish in fiber art by senior beta member Gina Staples, and National Junior Beta Vice President, Mr. Buzzy Ashley. We had those in recognition a few months ago. I just want to mention to you, they did wonderful at Nationals. Many wonderful memories were made at this magical place. I want to turn the spotlight now to our Muhlenberg County High School fishing team, who has had an amazing year. Here are a few of their accomplishments. They were named 2017 KHSAA Region 1 champions, broke the Region 1 record for one-day total weight of 23 pounds and 4 ounces. They were the 2017 KHSAA Bass Fishing State Champions. This is the third state championship of the past 4 years. One person in particular broke 3 state records. Mr. Taylor Harris won the biggest fish of 7 pounds, 7 ounces. That's quite a story to tell, right? A fish. 1 day total weight, 21 pounds and 14 ounces, and a 2-day total weight of 38 pounds and 10 ounces. Taylor Harris graduated this year and has been on the team for 4 years. Braxton Beasley, his partner, is now a senior, and this was his first year on the team. At this time, I would like to ask Mr. Taylor Harris to come up along with Mr. Braxton Beasley and receive a certificate of recognition for their accomplishment. And Mr. Taylor Harris. Congratulations. Congratulations to both of these students and their families, and to their coach, Mr. Cody Napier. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla. Next, we have our treasurer's report, Mr. Glutzinger.
Thank you, Chairman Rager, distinguished board members. Bringing you the June 30th financials, which will be the end of this fiscal year. Our revenues, right now, the beginning balance is about $19.7 million. SEEK funds, you'll notice that they're up to a little over $2 million. That is due to about $434,000 received for FSPK funds, if you recall. We get those twice annually, and so when we go to the cash breakdown over the past few months, there's been a negative balance in debt service. This goes and it bolsters that account. Also, there was a discussion on Monday night regarding franchise tax. I went back and researched that. It was under. It was about $500,000 under what we had originally predicted. However, we received an $891,000 check in July that's to be posted in June's financials. That will be reflected in the annual financial report that's put out. I had a discussion with the state today, asking about how franchise tax works, just to make sure that I'm still understanding it. But it's a tax that allows people to do business in the state. But I'm not alone in understanding that the timing is haphazard. There's about 40 other counties that have made the same call in the last week on how the franchise tax timing is, and so it truly is a haphazard timing issue. So in order to budget for those numbers, I take the last 3 years and then I adjust it down a little bit, just to make sure that I'm being a little conservative with that. So with that said, our total monthly receipts are at about $3.2 million, up $121,000. That's mainly due to the FSPK funds, but it's actually up about a little over $1 million because of the franchise tax. And so expenditures this month, our accounts payable was at about $1.692 million, and that was because of general fund, just fund expenses were up about $922,000, and that's that is due to finishing the year out, so we paid several large bills in June, so. And also, construction is at $135,543. That's up about $128,000 because we made another payment on the roofing project that we're at longest. So overall, we're up about approximately $1 million when we finish out the $1.692 million. Payroll, we finished at $4.267 million. That's up about $1.64 from the previous month, and that's strictly because of the 4 checks that are paid out for less than 12-month employees in June. So for total expenses this month, about $5.96 million. Payroll, gross payroll was about $3.9 million. Employee deductions was about $1.38 million, which was a net pay of about $2.56 million. Taxes were about $662,000. KTRS payments were a little over $500,000. County retirement was a little over $200,000. Other insurance payments were $87,000, and all other payments were about $223,000 for a total of the $4.267 million. So of those accounts payable, I apologize. In fixed mix expenses, that was about 75% of the overall expenses that were paid in June. That is $1.28 million. Utility expenses were about 6.86% of that amount, and that was $118,000. And variable expenses, which fluctuate due to volume, is about $316,000, and that's about 18% of the overall payments made. Accounts payable breakdown of the $1.72 million in June. General fund was $1.332 million. Special revenue was $181,000. I'm sorry, I didn't click. I'm sorry. Special revenue was $181,000. Construction was $135,000, and debt service was $1,000. That was 2 $500 payments that were made to Old National, and those are the Old National Wealth Management Group, and those are service fees. And food service had $70,000. So the ledger balance at the close of the month was $17 million, which is down about $2.7 million, which in all actuality once the AFR is complete, that'll be down about $1.9 million. Just if we take into account the franchise tax payment that we're expecting to come. So the bank balance about $17.2 million. Outstanding checks $824,299. That was because there was a significant amount that were written on June 28th. That was the catch-up checks. And so the cash close at the end of the month was $16.727 million. Also, with that remaining balance, in the last couple of weeks, I've taken approximately $8 million and invested it into KDE-approved investments, and I've done it in a step-down strategy that frees up funds over time as they're needed. So, in order to, as we start giving back money to our staff members, this allows us to have our money working for us instead of it just sitting in the bank and just sitting on that money. I'd rather have it making us some, and we're going to start releasing it over time. So I'd rather, like I said, I want our money working for us rather than just sitting. And when I restructured it, it was actually a little bit higher. When I originally told you about a 1.89% yield, it's gone up about 0.04, so it's about a 1.93% yield at this time. So the breakdown of that cash balance, the June balance, about $14.687 million of that is general fund, which in my original budget was about $14.46 million. So it actually, we were $200,000 under the positive, but it was pretty close. But however, that is down about $2.6 million from the previous month. Special revenue is at negative $132,000, and that's down $375,000 from the previous month. All that is a reflection of federal cash requests and those sorts of things. What that is once you spend it, you request the funds to reimburse that. That's all that is a reflection of. Construction's at $1.2 million. It's down $135,000, which reflects the construction payment that occurred. Debt service is now at $13,000. And you'll notice that's up $439,277, which is exactly the amount the seat funds were over this month. Food service is at $526,000, that's down about $48,000. Daycare is at $83,000, which is down about $4,000 overall. And community education investments, they remain the same. That investments is the ExxonMobil stock that was bequeathed to Greenville school districts. For a total of $17 million, which is down about $2.7 million from the previous month. So our extended financial picture, our cash flow needs through November 7th, I estimate that the balance will get down to about $12.8 million should everything hold true. As we start getting into this next school year, and we start getting a better feel for where payroll is going to settle out, I'll be able to pull those numbers even more accurate and give you better estimates over the course of time. Are there any questions?
Thank you for researching the tax and
No problem.
reporting back to us. I appreciate that.
Are there any questions for Eric on the treasurer's report? If not, I need a motion to approve. A motion by Mr. Johar. I'll second. All in favor of approving the treasurer's report, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I hear none. And next, payments of bills and salaries, Mr. Glucksinger.
Thank you again. This month I bring to you $279,251.53 in board bills. Of those, $209,000 comes from general fund. Funds 2 is about $8,000. Debt service is $61,000. And food service is $54. You guys have the breakdown of the outstanding, or excuse me, the checks of significance this month are that $61,667 check, which was our debt service payment. And there was a check for $24,547, and that's our tax collection fee. And it's at about 2.75% is what we pay the sheriff's department to collect the property taxes. And there was another check for $9,433 to Reliance Communications, and that is the district all-call service, which was just the renewal fee.
Any questions regarding bills and salaries? If not, I need a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve.
A motion by Ms. Wells. Second by Mr. Bowers. All in favor of payment of bills and salaries, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I hear none.
Thank you.
And payment of school bills. I've had a chance to review all of the financials for the different schools. And if there are no questions, we need a motion to pay the school bills. A motion by Mr. Johar, and I'll second. All in favor of payment of school bills, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I hear none. And public participation? We have one. Mr. Richard Holtzclaw wants to speak with us on the grading system. Mr. Holtzclaw. Let me just remind you, you have 3 to 5 minutes, and I'll let you know when you have a minute left.
Yeah, you can kick me off. I'm sure I'll
I'll
be
kick
more
you
than
off.
3 to 5 minutes.
Okay,
Uh,
go ahead.
I have proposed to the school board a new grading system proposal. The current grading system proposal doesn't provide accurate grade point averages. As some of you know, I've been crusading for this for over 5 years to get the current fatally flawed system revised to ensure that our county students receive a fair and accurate grade point average. As we all know, a student's grade point average is the single most important measure they receive to represent how they have performed during their high school career. It will come as a surprise to most of you that none of the students graduating last spring received an accurate grade point average, not a single one. Every student received a grade point average that was lower than it should have been, lower by as much as 75%. That's not exactly insignificant, it's preposterous. If one student's average classroom performance percentage is 5, 10, or even 50% higher than another student's average classroom performance percentage, then that student should receive a grade point that is the same 5, 10, or even 50% higher than the other student. That's not what happens in the grading system today. Your grading system today, which is Ultimate Campus, if a student is performing at 69%, they get a 1.0. If they move to 70%, that's a 1% increase. They get a 2.0. For that 1% increase, they get a 100% increase in their grade point. It happens at the break of each one of them. At the break between a B and a C, it's 50%. At a break between a B and an A, it's 33% for a 1% improvement. Anyway, last year, as part of my continued efforts, I met with Mr. Sherman, which is the attorney for the school district, and explained to him the pitfalls and so forth of the current grading system. It took me less than an hour to convince him that the current grading system needed to be revised and to make the grade point average results more accurate. Mr. Sherman strongly suggested that if I really wanted to ensure that anything got changed, I would have to get this issue placed on the school board meeting agenda, which turned out to be a lot harder than you think. But here I am. Right below here, I have a copy of the email that Mr. Sherman sent to all the school board members as a result of my meeting. Dear school board members, recently I had a chance to discuss the current grade point average scale with Mr. Holtzclaw. Some of you may have had communication with him before, and he proposes the school begin using percentages for the creation of grade points as opposed to our current 1, 2, 3, 4 point system. For instance, if a student has performed at a 69% in the class, their grade point would be 1.9 instead of 1.0. Furthermore, if a student had performed at 96%, that student's grade point would be 4.6 instead of 4.0. Further, it would lead to a higher grade point averages and more keys money. Further, this is his statement. Further, it is a more accurate assessment of someone's grade point average. As can be seen from above, the percentages would be converted to grade points. I did caution Mr. Holtzclaw that the change on this issue could be difficult since it's different than what people have used in the past. However, frankly, it is a more accurate assessment of someone's grade point average than the current system. If some of you have a chance to look over his proposal, there are several loopholes that develop on the fringe of the current grade point average system. For instance, if someone receives an 89 in a class, then that student receives a grade point of 3.0. And if someone receives a 90, then that student receives a grade point of 4.0. But that is, it cannot be said that the 4.0 student is actually operating at a 33% higher level than the other student. But that is what the current grade point system would show. I've got a lot more stuff here, but anyway, I'm sure I'm not going to have time to do it all. The current Ultimate Campus grading system fails to increase a student's awarded grade point to properly reflect the student's improving average classroom performance. Even though a D student improves their average classroom performance from 60 to 69%, a 50% improvement, a C student improves from 70 to 79%, a 12% improvement, or a B, 11%, or an A, 11%, the Ultimate Campus grading system continues to award the same grade points, 1, 2, 3, and 4, respectively, to these students.
Mr. Holtzclaw, your time's up.
Okay.
Thank
In summary, I'm requesting that the school board seriously consider the proposed grading system change. I suggest the school board schedule a working session to adjust this proposal in detail. I'd be glad to sit in and provide any assistance needed in understanding the complete ramifications of this proposal. I plan to present at the next school board meeting the positive effects this proposed grading system change will have on keys monies awarded to our students. Since this is a statewide grade
Mr.
point
Holtzclaw,
average problem,
Thank you.
this is being shared with all the counties in the state. I'm sure that the school board and so forth really doesn't have any interest whatsoever and making sure our students receive accurate grade point averages.
Thank you. Okay, next we have the superintendent report. Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Chairman Rager. Board members, I have several things here that I would like to go through, and it may be a little all over the board. It's my first one, so bear with me. I first want to mention something I mentioned at the work session. I want to thank a lot of folks for the first couple of weeks I've been here. A lot of time. People have given me a lot of time, from principals to board members. Several folks at central office staff has been exceptional, welcoming, encouraging, trying to get me to where I need to be as fast as they can. So I want to say thanks to just so many people. It's been an outstanding start as far as people working with me and trying to help me out, and they deserve that. Retirees, I want to say I don't know if they're still here or not. They don't have to be. They don't have to be anywhere. I can't say enough for our retirees and what they've done over time. What a thing to look back on after a career and look at all the people you've affected. And there are countless numbers of, if you've been in education in any way, there are so many lives that you've affected, and you may not even know it. So the retirees, I mean, we lost some really good people, and I'm proud of them. I'm honored to be able to stand up here tonight and shake their hand and say congratulations, because some really good folks. We've got more coming, but they're in the promised land now. That's where we're all headed, and I'm proud of them. And I just wanted to say one more thing about them, because it's just they've just been exceptional. Next thing I would like to mention, what I want to do more with this report as I get a little better at what I'm doing, I want to make this more of a positive, kid-centered time where I can bring, hopefully we can get some principals up here talking about their kids, about their schools. There's so many good things going on, and we don't always hear them, and this is a forum. This is my 5 or 10 minutes, and that's how I want to use it. I want to get, it's great to see the fishing team, and I guess I'm going into number 4 a little bit, but the Beta kids, what they did down there, you give them a minute or so, and that's all we can do is say that, but that's a huge thing, what they did. A national officer, that's amazing. The fishing team, I'm envious. Anybody can catch a 7-pound, 7-ounce bass. I've been trying to do that for 40-something years, ever since I started fishing, maybe 50. And that's an incredible thing to win a championship. There are a lot of great things going on in Muhlenberg, and I'm proud of these kids, and I want to do a better job. I need to do a good job of organizing this where we are constantly bringing these kids up here and showing the community what's going on. We just want to change the attitude. There's a lot of good things, and I want to focus on that. Also, speaking of that, Emma Poole, one of our own, she was admitted into the Gatton Academy. That's a huge deal, and I know her family is extremely proud of her. So are we. So yet another student doing great things. Now I want to brag on some administrators. Middle school soccer is something that's been brought to me over and over. Probably the biggest topic when I first came on. What are we going to do about kids not being able to play middle school soccer? 6th graders in particular, there's a gap there. There's a lot of things going on behind the scenes I don't really want to get into. The high school is kind of taken over the middle school, KHSAA. They're adding some guidelines and some restrictions, and so there's a lot of uncertainty. But basically what we all knew was we had kids not getting a chance to participate. And the more they participate, it's just better in every way. So after talking to the high school and talking to the middle school, they all agreed. And basically the middle school principals, assistant principals said, we'll take it on. And they need some recognition for this, because what that means is more nights out, away from their family, more work at no extra pay at this point. And they're all saying, this is what needs to be done. We'll figure it out. And they did. And they got together and they made it work. So it's still a work in progress. I'm not going to say it's going to be an extensive schedule. We're working on it. But there are 6th graders now, middle schoolers, period, who are going to be able to play middle school soccer. So I'm very proud of the folks that stepped up, because now we've got kids doing something that couldn't before. And we may talk later about how to best compensate folks and make this work a little better. But at least this year, there's not going to be a gap. Oddly, I'm stopping on kids and jumping to something totally different now. And I want Jimmy Fleming, if he would, to step up and talk a little bit about what's going on with some construction at Longest and possibly Central Office. talking about the bottom section only, right? The lower.
Have we got any bids on it yet?
Thank you, Jimmy. Next, I want to welcome Grant Sharp. He's our newest administrator. Grant is the new principal at Bremen. Bremen is in very good hands.
But all December done it, huh?
Get it right this time, Grant. Let's make sure Bremen gets it right this time. All right? Next item, I'm going to need some help with Mr. Bletzinger, and I want to say thanks to him as well. We've pretty much had daily talks. I'm trying to get up to speed on budgeting and all the stuff I need to know, and he's a ways ahead of me. But he's done a great job of sitting down with me, taking me through it, and he's also ran a lot of numbers because I want to see numbers. I want to see where we're heading in different ways, and I ask for it, and he gets it to me. So what we're going to ask for this time, and Eric, I'll let you jump in as I start to falter. We're going to ask for the compensating tax. That's what we'll be seeking, and basically that's good news for folks, our property taxpayers, because as I understand that, again, you're going to help me out here. We're basically, that ensures that we get what we had this year, that we have the same amount of revenue that we had last year.
Correct.
So as I understand that, and I'm really going out here now, as
Yeah,
I
you're doing
understand
fine.
that, if the property taxes if the property values go up, conceivably to get that, taxes could go down some, what
Correct.
they're actually paying. And last year, we took the 4%, which most districts do. And that guarantees you at least 4% more revenue. But we're kind of going back and forth. Last year was 4%, compensating probably 4% next year. But he's comfortable with that at this point, and as am I. Now, did I miss anything?
No, you did it fine.
Or any other questions on that?
There's no hearing that's required for that one. So, again, it gets you the same exact amount of revenue as you got last year, and it does have the potential to lower tax rates, because if property values go up, then it's less that everyone has to contribute to get to that amount.
Thank you.
That was it.
Okay. The last one's kind of taken me by surprise. Not that I didn't know a solar eclipse was coming, but I had no idea how big a deal. It's getting bigger every day, seemingly. So what we've decided to do is we're going to close schools. It's going to be essentially as a snow day, whatever it be. We're not going to use, Mr. Freeman advised, and I agree with him, not to make it a work day, because if you make it a work day, then that's not a day kids can go ahead and make up. If there's a work day later in the year, they can make that day up. So they're going to still hopefully get them out on time, But again, I really wasn't considering this, and it just kept coming up. And after we talked to Darren Harvey, Curtis McGee, Ricky Allen, they all advised, basically, I advise you to close. And it's the uncertainty. We don't know. And the thing is, I realize we may very well close, and there's nothing with traffic. But there is a concern there. I know surrounding counties, I know McLean, Hopkins, Todd, Christian, Trigg, Warren County I saw today is closing. So there's more and more that seem to be closing. And I found it interesting because I know Ms. Higgs got an email that she forwarded to me yesterday or the day before. There's a school in southern Indiana that asked her, could they use her parking lot and facilities to drive their kids down here to watch this solar eclipse. And that's just one who happened to ask. So that tells me there's a lot more out there that are coming to Muhlenberg County, not necessarily Christian or Hopkinsville. So I'm not sure. That's a little bit of a gut call, but every day that seems like a better call as more and more close. This is a big event. So we'll get that out tomorrow. We'll start really getting the word out to folks so they have time to plan for that. And that's all I have. Any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to personnel actions, Ms. Browning.
Good evening, everyone. In personnel actions, we've been rather busy at this time of the year. Certified personnel employment, we had 3 actions. Resignation of certified personnel, we had 12 actions. Rescinded certified personnel, there was 1. Reassignment of certified personnel, 14 actions. Classified personnel employment, there were 10 actions. Resignation of classified personnel, there were 9. And reassignment of classified personnel, there were 16. And I'd just like to say, my department, my secretary, and a lot of people at the board have helped us. We've been extremely busy, and I'm very appreciative of the help I received.
And then, next we have to elect board secretary. Okay. This is just a housekeeping measure. Superintendent is actually the secretary of the board, so the board just needs to elect the new superintendent, Mr. Davis, as our secretary. Have a motion by Mr. Johar,
Second.
second by Ms. Mills. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I hear none. And A1, we're going to do Ms. Brown again. And this is to consider the emergency certification for a biology position at the high school.
We have posted 2 science positions for the high school. One position was posted as chemistry, the other was biology. We were able to complete the chemistry hiring within the given window. However, the biology position is still open. We have been able to locate a fully certified qualified teacher for the other position. We do have an applicant with a teaching certification and experience in the area of biology, but she is not certified in the state of Kentucky as of today. It was a unanimous decision by the interview committee that they had interviewed a quality applicant. The high school interviewed this teacher, and they say that this person brings an excellent background of working with students, diverse students, ESL, low socioeconomic backgrounds, and in an email from Ms. Bumps on behalf of the interview committee, they strongly urge us to please consider the recommendation and understand that their recommendation does bear in mind what is best for our students. The interview committee consisted of 2 assistant principals, a parent site-based rep, and a science teacher. If the district submits an application for this certification, the teacher would be eligible for the position. Pending the outcome from required testing, the prerequisites for approval for this are outlined in our law, our statutes and regulations. And there are certain forms that we have to fill out and send to KDE. All of these prerequisites have been met by the district and the applicant. Emergency certification is good for only 1 year, and in this case, it will be the remainder of the school year. And more importantly, if this teacher passes the necessary testing, that teacher would then change certification at that time, so it may not even be for the full year. This will give the district time to recruit a fully certified position for next year if needed, if the situation occurs, and we hope that doesn't, or at least allow this teacher to obtain certification.
I need a motion to accept the recommendation of emergency certification for the biology position at the high school. A motion by Mr. Johar, and I will second. All in favor of considering emergency certification for the biology position at the high school, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? I hear none. Approve memorandum of agreement with the Central City for school resource officer, Ms. Embry.
I'll have that decision paper before you regarding renewing the contract as Central City Police Department and School Resource Officer. This position is invaluable to our elementary schools, our middle schools, and it's just time to renew that again. So I recommend that the board approve this position, requesting that the amount of $3,667 be approved, with the rest being secured by other.
I have a motion by Mr. Johar to approve the consideration of renewing the contract of the Central City Police Department and School Resource Officer. I need a second.
I second the motion.
Second by Ms. Wells. Is there any discussion? All in favor of approving the memorandum of agreement with Central City for a school resource officer, say aye. Aye. All opposed? I hear none. Thank you, Carla. And next, Ms. Browning, we have consider a second reading of the KSBA Board Policy Update Number 40. And this is actually just the second reading, so we've already approved the first, is that right?
Yes. Yeah, basically what
I
this is.
wasn't here last month, so I'm just making sure.
This is just the annual update. Those are recommended and required by law when we go through the KSBA service on this, so this is the second reading.
And I'll make the motion we accept the recommendation.
I second the motion.
Second by Ms. Wells. All in favor of considering the second reading of the KSBA Board Policy Update Number 40, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I hear none. And next is to consider requesting bids for replacement of the central office roof.
Okay, there's a little bit of a change on that one too. It's the tentative budget because we will be basically using Trimco like we did for the other longest roofing project. And Ms. Miller, I gave her some documents. Trimco met with Mr. Fleming, Eric, and myself the other day, a representative from there, and that's just some additional information on their services they provide. We didn't have that on the longest job, but I wanted to give that to you as soon as they sent it to me. But basically what this is just considering the tentative budget approval to move forward with the project. So we have to get the authorization from you all. After meeting with them, the numbers that they provided, to me, I'm just like, wow, things are expensive. But they gave us a tentative budget of $103,000 on this. And he said that was probably a high estimate. But basically what they will do is we will submit the BG1 that is required. And then the necessary documents for you all to consider will be submitted in the August meeting. We'll hopefully bid this out in September for about a week. And then possibly over fall break, if everything goes through, they can actually work on this and get it done before winter sets in.
So remind me of the order. We get a bid because we need repairs, and then we go for a BG1 with Kentucky Department of Education?
Well, when you go through, and Eric, you guys, I may call on you all for help on this too. When you go through this service, it actually just changed through the State Department. When we did the longest project, this Trimco, the company that we're using, did the BG1 for us. We now have to do that ourselves through a different program. That's a state thing that just changed.
It just sounds like we're already going with them.
I'm sorry.
It just sounds like we're already
No,
going to use them.
that's what we're doing, is considering moving forward.
But we're going to post it for bids for other companies to provide a bid? Is that
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
Okay. So,
What it is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
well, I just wanted to make sure it was a process. If we need repairs, then, I would assume that we would discuss repairs and then request bids, post it for bids, even though a BG1 has to take place through Kentucky Department of Education. There's not a bid.
No,
So
not
even-
yet. We're not there yet. No.
Okay.
No, we're not to that point. This is basically, go ahead, Eric, I'm sorry.
What I was saying, I think the biggest thing that's Tremco is the material supplier. They're not the people that do the work. So they've given us a soft estimate on what they think it may cost, but when Tremco's on the state bid list for supplies, so what they do is they are the ones that bid out the services. So when we bid out longest roof, they bid out, and then we opened up, it was a sealed bid process, and then the roofing not supplier, but the roofing companies are the ones that gave us the bids to complete the process. Tremco just happens to be the people that supply like the sheeting and the tarring and those sorts of things, and they actually have some of the cheapest material costs anyway, so it kind of benefits the school district in that respect. But it also takes a little bit of weight off of our shoulders, having to do all the process to bid it out, where they help us get those processes along, make sure that everything is done exactly as it's supposed to be. But I think the biggest thing here to take away is that Tremco is the supplier, and that we're not moving forward with asking them to do the project. We're asking them to help us move forward on bidding the project out.
So the supply, the material will come from them no matter who gets the bid?
Correct.
Okay.
And they're on the state bid list. And the other thing is that when they bid those out, one of their representatives comes to the bid opening and also asks the roofers several questions to make sure that, when we move forward, and the architect is also there at the bid opening, and they ask questions to make sure that the supply, or not the supplier, but the roofing company is giving us the correct bid, where they're giving us the right amount of replacing vents and those sorts of things. Correct, Jimmy? And so that's where this Tremco comes into play, and it's actually a benefit for us. But yes, it does drive business to them, but it also helps the district out in getting cheaper material and making sure everything is done according to the book.
So it's not mandatory that we use their material, do we?
It's not mandatory. No, it's not mandatory that we have to use their material, but again, they're on the state bid list, and they're also one of the cheaper suppliers, so they go on volume pricing.
Let's see the bid and then we'll decide.
So we just need to move forward and,
We'll get some bids.
so we need to, have a motion to, allow the district to have that bid out for replacement of the central office roof. Is that?
I'm really sorry.
Oh, you're fine. I can hear myself good today. I said we just need to make a motion to allow the district to bid out for the replacement of the central office roof, correct?
Pretty much what you're just allowing the district to move forward with the budget approval. It's not a
Budget
set in
approval.
stone, just the budget approval process.
Okay.
Because we'll bring documents in for the contracts and all that will be brought in individually. This is just moving forward with the process to let us get started getting all this in place.
Okay, Mr. Johar's made a motion to move forward with the process for allowing bids for the replacement of the central office roof. And I'll second that. All in favor of moving forward with the district allowing bids to be accepted for the replacement of the central office roof to start the process, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say, I hear none. Next, we have to review of updates to employee and student accident reports. Mr. Blutzinger.
Thank you, Sharon Rager. Again, this is, as we discussed on Monday, these are just updates on a couple fields that we've run through KSBA that will make these forms a little bit more user-friendly for my staff when we submit to workman's comp and student accident insurance and those sorts of things. It's more of it's a convenience request for my staff, so
Were these things not there before?
they were not. So really what would occur is that instead of Kim having the information, Kim Latham does it, and my staff is incredible, but she does this very well. But what this is she'd get this form, but then she'd have to follow up with the employee and get several other pieces of information, wherein if we just had it on the form, she'd have it on the front end. That's really the biggest thing. So it prevents, or it streamlines our workflow process.
It's like an incident report. How were you doing before?
I mean, we still do those. I mean, we've always done them, but again, these are just adding a couple of fields that she would normally have to go back and get.
Make a motion.
And thank you.
Yes.
I have a motion by Mr. Johar to accept the recommendation to allow KSBA to update our forms.
I second the motion.
Second by Ms. Wells. All in favor of allowing KSBA to allow updates to our forms for, as Eric mentioned, say aye. Aye. All opposed? I hear none. Next on the agenda, we have to consider standard form of agreements between owner and architect for the Bremen Gatton Ballpark. Mr. Lutzinger.
Thank you again. Again, this is just a standard KDE contract that's between us and the architect. We have to get that filled out to move forward with the Jeannie Gish Gatton Bremen Ballpark project. I've reviewed the contract. All of the numbers coincide with what was submitted with the BG1, so I feel comfortable with this.
Are there any questions? Need a motion to consider the standard form of agreement between the owner and architect for the Bremen Gatton Ballpark. And I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Wells. All in favor of considering the form of agreement for the Bremen Ballpark, say aye. Aye. All opposed? I hear none. Next is to consider the memorandum of agreement with Hopkins County Schools for teacher of visually impaired contract. Ms. Penley, you're there.
Here. And I hate to do this, to start out with an apology, but at the work session on Monday, we talked about how on Monday night Hopkins County was going to approve the contract and put that in the mail to us, and they did. Of course, they're using snail mail, and so they put it in the mail on Tuesday, so we do not have it to put in front of you. But just to remind you that this memorandum of agreement is with Hopkins County to assist us in serving fewer than 10 kids who have visual impairments. The only difference in that contract from last year is the fact that this teacher who we're using 1 day a week has a step raise, and so we obviously have to honor that step raise. So I understand if you want to table that to the next meeting, but with school starting in just a few weeks away before the next board meeting, I wanted to go ahead and see if that's something you would still consider.
What's the pleasure of the board?
And as a reminder, that does come out of special education funds, and it would likely be no more than $6,000.
So you said earlier when I was talking to you before the meeting, we could do this and just do up to $6,000 in anticipation that that's not
And
going to
if
go
it's any
over. And if
different-
it's any more, then you could come back to the board and ask for an
I
increase.
will bring that back in August if it's any different.
So what's the pleasure of the board? Do you want to table this, or do you want to go up to 6,000, and if it's over, then she can bring it back to us, it's whatever.
If needed, we can.
You said 10 student, or around 10 students?
Less than 10.
Less than 10. I mean, it's needed, so, I mean, I'm good to go ahead. Do one motion by Mr. Johar, and I'll second that. All in favor of considering the memorandum of agreement with Hopkins County for the visually impaired contract, up to 6,000. If it's anything over, Ms. Penley will bring that back to us in August. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? I hear none. And next, review alternate program policies and procedures.
At this time, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Watkins.
Thank you all for allowing me to present and speak for a minute tonight. I have a little PowerPoint behind you, so I know you have to look around. Sorry for that. As stated in the Kentucky Administrative Regulation, each local Board of Education shall adopt and annually review policies and procedures for operation of each alternative school in your district. Locally adopted policies and procedures include purpose of the program, eligibility criteria, process for entering students and exiting students out of the program, composition of the team to develop the ILPA, and procedures for collaboration with outside agencies. So to accomplish this task, like I said, I have a small PowerPoint that you all can see behind you. On to the next slide. It is critical that students who are assigned to the alternate setting experience a high quality of instruction that will help them meet their goals of completing pathways and becoming college and career ready. Our curriculum is aligned with Kentucky core academic standards, and each student has individualized learning and behavior goals to help improve their chances of having a successful school experience. We also offer a meaningful alternate or alternative to suspension and expulsion. Eligibility is the next slide. A referral system is in place for students, grades 6 through 12. School administrators are the primary referral source. Students who are referred to the Renaissance Center typically have one or more of these characteristics. A student has contributed to substantial and ongoing disruption of the educational process. They require intensive behavioral supports. They need intensive social and emotional support. They may have severe truancy issues. They have violated the discipline code. They're at risk of failure or dropping out of school. They have dropped out of school and have requested to come back via alternative school. And then there are also cases where a student poses a serious safety concern that they have to be closely monitored or supervised. The ILPA composition team, this is the group of people that meet and decide when the students come to us or when they exit. According to board policy states, the superintendent shall appoint members of a team to develop an ILPA, which is an individual learning plan addendum for students in grades 6 through 12 assigned to the alternate school or program. Our team consists of a district level supervisor, which is Ms. Penley at the board level, the lead administrator of the referring school, so that would be one of the assistants or the principal of the middle schools or high schools, the principal of the alternative school, school counselors, school psychologists, teachers, and any other staff member that may be appropriate at that time or for that student. Parents and students are always encouraged to participate in our meetings and are always provided notification of the meetings. Decisions for students with disabilities under the IDEA shall be made through the Admissions and Release Committee process, and changes in service and delivery required under IDEA shall be made to the student's IEP. Decisions for students identified under Section 504 shall be made through the team's process as required under federal law and corresponding district policies and procedures. Now I'll talk a little bit about the transition from the regular ed or regular high school or middle school to our setting. The referring administrator shall complete and submit all necessary referral paperwork to the central office. In our case, it's to Ms. Penley. The central office supervisor will review the referral for completeness, and then at that time we'll begin coordinating schedules of all those people that are involved in this process. The referring administrator will provide notification to the parent and the student. For students with an IEP or 504, appropriate staff will be invited to the meeting and appropriate procedures will be utilized throughout the decision-making process. Referring school teachers will enter all grades into the student information system prior to the ILPA meeting so that a transition grade or a transfer grade that we call it for each class can be calculated and entered prior to the student enrolling into the alternate school. The ILPA team will set criteria for re-enrollment back into the traditional school, aligning the length of assignment to district practices. Now, I will talk about the transition from alternative education back to the regular setting. Students may transition to a regular classroom setting in accordance with any criteria for reentry established by the ILPA team in accordance with the following process. The lead administrator of the alternative school shall invite the student or the parent to meet to discuss the transition. If the parent, a legal guardian, or adult student does not attend, a written notification shall be provided to explain the proposed reentry. For students with an IEP or 504, the IEP or Section 504 team shall determine placement of students as required by law. Again, the transfer grade that I spoke about previously, we put those in just as the regular school does before students come back or come to us. Not always does a transition work, so there are times that a student may be up to be reassigned to our program. If they are, at that time, the ILPA team will reconvene accordingly to discuss what's best for that kid. Lastly, we collaborate with a lot of different outside agencies. The building administrator of the alternative education program establishes a process to collaborate with the outside agencies involved with students enrolled in the program. Most of the time, students who are assigned to the program have or need additional services offered outside of the school setting, and making sure all these agencies are on the same page is what's best for the kid and is critical. Currently, we collaborate with several agencies, court-designated workers. We collaborate with our juvenile judge, social services, private therapists, and community health providers. And that's all I have today, and thank you for your time. And I know Ms. Wells came down in the spring, and I'd like to invite all the rest of you to come down anytime. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we need a motion to accept the alternate program policies and procedures.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Ms. Wells. Second by Mr. Bowers. All in favor of approving and the review of alternate program policies and procedures, say aye. Aye. All opposed? I hear none. And next we have to consider letter of engagement with Teresa T. Combs for special education, 504 legal services, and ADA FMLA legal services. Ms. Finley.
All right, thank you. And this decision paper that we presented is basically a repeat of what you saw last year. The year before last, Teresa Combs left KSBA and left special education without a legal consultant there. And so she went out on her own, and so she's offered her services to schools. And so last year we participated in her service, and it was very beneficial. And we have very quick access to her. Anytime we have a question, we call, she answers, emails, texts, anything that we need. As you'll see in the decision paper, it is paid with through special education funds, and in the letter of engagement, you see that it's to the tune of about $1,800. So I would like to recommend that we re-enter into this agreement for the 17-18 school year.
Make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Johar,
I second the motion.
second by Ms. Wells. All in favor of considering letter of engagement with Teresa Combs for the special education services provided, say aye. Aye. All opposed? I hear none. And last we have appointment of districts ARC and 504 chairpersons for the 17-18 school year. Ms. Penley.
Okay, and this is really a formality. We have two programs that we operate that requires a specialized chairperson. One is for special education, the other is for our 504 accommodations. And so in your decision paper, you see a list of the positions who are eligible to serve as chairpersons, and I recommend that you appoint these positions as ARC chairpersons or 504 chairpersons.
Any questions? Okay. I need a motion to approve the appointment of the district and 504 chairpersons for ARC 17-18 school year. And I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second by Mr. Johar. All in favor of the appointment of districts ARC and 504 chairpersons for the 17-18 school year, say aye. Aye. All opposed? I hear none. Down to the board consent agenda. Were there any questions or concerns regarding the items on the consent agenda? If not, I need a motion to approve the board consent agenda.
I'll make a motion, we approve.
Motion by Ms. Wells, second by Mr. Bowers. All in favor of approving the board consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? I hear none. And before we adjourn, I just want to welcome Mr. Davis to his first board meeting that he survived. He's still sitting upright, so that's a good thing. Just welcome him and encourage you all to give him the opportunity to make some good changes with our district. We know we're going in the right direction, and we want to continue and everybody try to be on the same page and work together every day that you're at school. You know, it's hard sometimes, but we know this year's going to go well, and I just want to encourage everyone to keep on the path down the right direction. So now I need a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Ms. Wells and a second by Mr. Bowers. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? I hear none.